welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivered for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome into Gamecock Pod Live for Wednesday, July 31st. Oh, I smell football in the air. We are just 31 days away from kickoff. All right, let's jump right into our Nana Sports news, notes, and headlines. Then we will be joined by Payton Titus from Go Gamecocks and the State. We'll be talking Dawn Staley, Asia Wilson, Olympics, Gamecock newcomers. She got to meet with each of them when they had their media availability a couple of weeks ago. And then we'll see if Payton will answer a few football questions. I'll have some takes as well. All right, today's news, notes, and headlines brought to you by the award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte, Fort Mill, Rock Hill, Lancaster area. Of course, I'm talking about Nana's Porch, your go-to for all your catering needs, whether it's a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a big backyard bash with a whole hog barbecue. Nana's Porch has got you covered. Let's say you just want to have a watch party and you got a bunch of friends coming over to watch the Gamecocks play Alabama or Oklahoma or Kentucky or Vanderbilt. Nana's Porch can just make you some food and drop it off for your tailgate. If you have an event that requires a food trailer, Nana's Porch voted among the top 3 food trailers in Charlotte by the local newspaper poll. And as we all know, the award-winning pimento cheese voted number 1 and number 2 in the meat and cheese category by the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association. So I strongly urge you to support this Gamecock-owned and operated business by going to nanasporch.com. That's NANASPORCH. Tell them I sent you. You'll love it. I guarantee it. All right, so today is 31 days until kickoff. We've been kind of counting it down here. Not really a whole lot of news, notes, or headlines. Debo Williams was named yesterday to the Bronco Nagurski watch list, which is he was one of 75 players nominated for the National Defensive Player of the Year. But so we started counting down from number 38. Well, we all know who number 38 is. So I will go ahead and add, if you're watching, hit the subscribe button. If you like, give us a 5-star review. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. Payton is definitely a 5-star guest, so hopefully I don't screw that up. So number 38, counting it down to 31, George Rodgers, Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 pick in the NFL draft, All-American. One of the greatest pleasures of my life was watching him played 3 years at South Carolina. Number 37, the Cadillac, Steve Wadiak. Never got to see him play. He played in the late 40s and early 50s and then was tragically killed in an automobile accident. Johnny Wright, he was the big deal at South Carolina in 1979 and 1980. Going into 1980, he was actually the halfback. George Rogers was the fullback. Johnny Wright got injured about 2 weeks into fall camp, and they had to scrap the split back veer and go to the I formation, and the rest is history. Big George led the nation in rushing, was an All-American, and wound up changing his career. Number 35, also running back, Spencer Clark from the 70s. In that wild 1977 South Carolina Clemson game, I remember he broke a long touchdown run, came off and lifted up his jersey and had a shirt on that said, "No cigar today." Of course, Steve Fuller and Jerry Butler and Dwight Clark, they kind of ruined that. 34 was Steve Dorsey. He was George Rogers' blocking fullback. Number 33 was Kevin Long from Clinton, South Carolina. He was the first running back in school history to rush for 1,000 yards. He was the 7th round draft pick of the New York Jets. His running mate, Clarence Williams, number 32, they both rushed for over 1,000 yards in 1975. Still the only time in school history 2 running backs rushed for over 1,000 yards. I also included Kent Haygood in that because he was dynamic as a player at South Carolina. I grew up, I watched him play in high school and then was in school with him at South Carolina. Today is Thomas Dendy, who was his running mate, a native of Fountain Inn, Hillcrest High School. Kent Haygood left school after the 1981 season when Jim Carlin got fired. Thomas Dendy was a true freshman that year. In 10 games, he rushed for 848 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, led the team in 1983, along with Kent Haygood. Again, 725 yards on 133 carries, 5.5 yards per carry. In 1984, during the Black Magic season, when South Carolina really had 4 really good running backs, 90 carries for 614 yards, almost 7 yards per carry. And then in 1985, 118 carries for 560 yards. That was his lowest total at South Carolina. He is the 4th all-time leading rusher in school history with 2,747 yards. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry, scored 24 touchdowns, had another 536 yards receiving for a total of 3,283 yards from scrimmage, 6.1 per carry. And so let's go ahead and bring in the award-winning beat writer for Go Gamecocks and the state. We love having her on the show. She certainly spruces up this old bald head's look. That is Payton Titus. Payton, it's the calm before the storm. It's the day before media day. What will that be like being in that mass of humanity in the indoor practice facility tomorrow?
Oh man, hopefully not as scary as it was for me last year with it being my first one, but no, I'm excited. I enjoyed the opportunity to, even though it's a lot of guys on the team in like for how many of them there are kind of a short period of time, I do enjoy being able to go around and just kind of chat it up with them and hopefully get to know them a little bit more so I can help everybody else get to know them a little bit more. So I'm excited and interested to see what kind of stories come out of that environment. So yeah, I think it'll be fun.
All right, so hopefully you got to rest up, decompress, and recharge the batteries and get going. But it's never a slow summer when Dawn Staley is involved. And so just number one, thanks for being back with us on the show. We always love you. Always love having you on the show. So just your thoughts on Dawn Staley, again, raising her profile, being with the First Ladies Olympic delegation, being all over social media in Paris, in the studio over the weekend with Mike Tirico for Team USA Men's. I think she's going to be a frequent guest in studio during basketball. And just everything else associated with it. And I got to think her continuing to raise her profile is going to pay off when she gets back from Paris and they give her, she gets a bigger and higher profile contract.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to think that that's imminent at this point, right? After a third national title and all the other things going on. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of shakes out. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before on this show, about her. I think the phrase I used was cultural capital, and how there are so few other figures in sports, particularly coaches in any level of any sport, that kind of have the same kind of, I guess, like, for lack of a better word, swag as her, aura as her, so it's really fun to kind of watch her, enjoy this time off and like the fruits of her labor, to be honest. So, the fact that she's in Paris to watch one of her players, and all the other sports too, but like one of her star players that she recruited and helped, improve her game and get her to the level where she's the best in the world now. I don't think anybody is arguing with that at this point after, a little over halfway through the W season for them. But, and all the work that she's done with the Olympics and everything. And it's been fun. I mean, I saw she was tweeting about the glass Coke bottles and how she wanted those to be able to find those in the States. And Coca-Cola sent her like a bunch of stuff, like chapstick and shirts and bottles and pins and all this. And I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty wild, because if I tweeted something about wanting a particular flavor of Coke or packaging of a Coke bottle, I would not receive that. So, it just kind of speaks to her influence and the fact that everybody everywhere knows her now. Like, I think in the women's basketball space, we've known obviously about Dawn Staley for a long time, and how she has kind of taken the mantle from her playing days, and then especially through now, like over the last several years, or decades or whatever, right? Of like, I'm going to make it my responsibility to speak up for myself and speak up for my players and speak up for my fellow coaches and all this. And so to see that play out now to where people outside of women's basketball know her, like I think Ari posted a TikTok with Dawn Staley where they were doing something to a dance to a Megan Thee Stallion song, and Megan Thee Stallion like saw it and either reposted it or commented on it. And it's like, okay, so rappers know who Dawn Staley is, athletes know who Dawn Staley is, like fashion designers know who Dawn Staley is. Like this, it's kind of a wild thing to think about. Like, I guess for me in particular, just I'm living in Columbia, South Carolina, which isn't necessarily a massive town, right? But it is a state capital. So, there's that. But it's like to think that someone of that kind of, at this point, global renown is somebody that I get to see pretty often on an almost daily basis from the months of like November to April is kind of a wild thing to think about. And I'm sure that there are people, here who go to games or go to whatever other events that she might be at where she's trying to connect with fans and stuff who kind of think of it in the same way. And then recruits also, right? Like we've talked about the unique kind of relationship she's able to form with them and bonds and things like that, and seeing those things evolve. Like when we talked to Miriam Dowda at the newcomer availability, she was talking about her AAU coach telling her that, South Carolina was on the phone and interested once she had entered the portal. And there was a little bit of like a shock there, I guess, for her. And we've heard Tina Pow say that as well when she was in the portal, as like, to know who Dawn Staley is, and then to know that Dawn Staley knows who you are and wants you here, and then you get here and you're like, wow, she's my coach, and I'm going to see her every day. Like that stuff is interesting and fun to kind of just see as a dynamic.
So Dawn Staley has been very active on social media. So from this morning, it looks like she's at the U.S. Embassy with Wanda Sykes and that guy from the Food Network.
Yeah, Gary, yep.
Yeah, traveling all over the place. And Dawn Staley has it looks like she has stopped at McDonald's to get a Royale with cheese. Pulp Fiction reference there. Royale with cheese. That's what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in France. But the TikTok with Ariel Chambers. Mm-hmm. In studio with Mike Tirico. I mean, certainly it's a great time to be Dawn Staley. Asia Wilson, 24 points in 26 minutes in a 102.76 route of Japan for one of their warm-up games. I really don't know. I mean, at some point they'll probably be challenged, but I thought it was interesting, like, Brittany Griner coming off the bench now. You've got Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart in that starting lineup. Chelsea Gray, 13 assists. I'm still wondering why Agumba Wale is not on this team. Like, I don't understand. Enrique, she lit them up in the All-Star game, I think, making a statement. But then again, Gino Auriemma did leave Candace Parker off the Olympic team twice. So it is political. But at any rate, just your reaction from Asia Wilson's first performance. And also, did you notice Dawn Staley was wearing the Asia Wilson A1 necklace in Paris as well?
Yeah, she's always repping. But yeah, I mean, Asia did as Asia does. I feel like, this year has just been, there's been a whole other level to her game. And it's like inarguable that she is the best in the world. And so it's fun to watch that, obviously. It's really cool to see her and Brianna Stewart be on the same team because we haven't gotten to see that in the W. And so, these are two women like at the top of their game, and to see them be able to riff off each other and everything has been really cool. I mean, 13 assists from Chelsea Gray also was nuts. I mean, I know people were worried a little bit about chemistry and everything after the WNBA All-Star game, and I would say 13 assists, like, you're fine. As far as like challenges and stuff, it's interesting because I feel like we're seeing on the men's side everyone else kind of over the last like several years, right? Like catching up, quote unquote, to USA basketball. As we see all these international NBA players playing international ball and doing what they do, like Team Canada and their high profile and all of that, right? And so we're seeing the parity gap kind of close on that side, whereas I think the women's game, they're still kind of working on that, in that the distance between Team USA and other nations is just still so kind of wide. So it'll be interesting to see over the, in this next kind of like generation of players. We talked about the Olympic roster being, kind of a passing of the torch at this point now, with like this being DT's kind of last stint and everything, and seeing, just it'll be interesting to see what this next generation of women's basketball players will deal with when it comes to Olympic basketball and Team USA basketball. They're still pretty dang dominant. And then obviously Asia was a huge part of that the other day.
No doubt. So obviously another former Gamecock with Team Canada, Letitia Ami here. I'm anxious to see them play. But look, let's just go off script here for a second. Can we just acknowledge the greatness that is LeBron James? A lot of people never want to put him in that conversation with Michael Jordan because he is very dramatic and, he's built like a transformer, but yet every time he gets touched, he acts like he's on, got to go to the ICU. But in the lead up to this Olympics, and even in the first game, in the warm up rounds, at almost 40 years old, LeBron James dominated and took over those games, and that's the only reason why Team USA went undefeated in the lead up to the Olympics. Was LeBron essentially putting on the cape, 6'8", 260 pounds, almost 40 years old. Hell, his son just got drafted into the NBA. I think it's time to really consider, when you look at his USA basketball career and him saving the day, you got to put him up there as one of the all-time greatest players ever. I mean, LeBron James, whether you like him or not, whether you like the drama of LeBron James, still, what a player.
Yeah. I mean, watching him is just the most insane thing ever, because it's not even like, oh, well, he's been playing forever and his skill set is still great, but like, he's lagging a little bit physically. Absolutely not. Like, this man fast break slams in the middle of these games, like crazy physical feats. Like he has worked so hard to keep his body in tip-top shape all the time, to where he's running around with these young men who literally are his son's ages and dominating still. Like, he's obviously not, the like peak LeBron anymore, right? But like, he could play for such a long time. Like, I remember seeing during the game against Serbia the other day, I don't know if it was like freezing cold takes or somebody just bringing up another tweet from the last Olympics where it was like, or the last Olympics, or maybe like one of the finals, however long ago, but they were like, man, he's like 30 now or something. And we got to think we'll only be dealing with this for like a little bit longer. Nope. Like, dude could keep playing for like 5-6 more years at this point, potentially. And like, no one would really like bat an eye. And it's really wild, because I mean, when we talk about, I mean, the first time I tell anybody that I work in sports media, a lot of the time, one of the main questions they'll ask is be like, well, who's your GOAT, LeBron or Michael Jordan? And I don't like getting into those kinds of conversations, because I feel like there's like no nuance in them. But when you want to talk about longevity of a career, like, no one is beating LeBron James. Like, I understand that, and I feel like my kind of like argument or whatever is invalidated by the fact that I wasn't alive when Michael Jordan was like, at his peak and everything, and I didn't get to watch that as it was happening. But like, man, I just got to think, when is the next time, if ever, we're going to see somebody like this be able to do what he has done at the level he's done it, for how long he's done it? It just feels impossible. And it's really cool to watch. It's one of those things. I mean, I feel like people are talking about this a lot with watching Asia this year too. It's like, we're sitting here and we're watching these people play basketball, and we're just like, yeah, this is history. And like, we get to watch this in real time. And in like 20, 30 years or whatever, people are going to be asking us what it was like to do that. And we're going to have no words. So yeah, it's really cool to see. I'm glad he got to do the flag bearer this year. along with Coco. I think it's kind of wild that like one of the youngest people on the team, one of the oldest people on the team got to do it at the same time, but I thought it was cool.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, nobody takes better care of their body than LeBron James. I think he definitely spent some time with Tom Brady. I mean, those two guys certainly defied their age with their greatness. All right, so I guess now it was 2 weeks ago. Women's basketball had newcomer media availability. I was disappointed Adele Tack was not included. So before we get into the three that were there, any health updates from any sources, or while you were at that media availability, what's the latest on Adele Tack? I mean, she should be, if not 100%, I mean, right there at it by now.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's really just, it seems like she's kind of, just practicing with everybody else. It doesn't seem like any modifications are happening. I think she's still getting treatment and things like that, which makes sense. You want to preventative of anything else potentially to happen, and also just care of things that already have happened. So yeah, to my knowledge, everything is fine, and she's right on schedule, doing well, and there's no kind of like holdups or anything like that. I know I'm pretty sure everybody just went home for a little bit before classes start and everything, so hopefully they're enjoying that, and a little bit of free time before the craziness ensues. But yeah, from what I know, everything's good. Everybody's doing well. Maddie as well, back on track as we anticipated, and I think she's adjusting to everything well, and yeah, I think everybody's good.
All right, so since you brought up Maddie McDaniel, so a lot of people may not realize she injured her meniscus. And there are different levels of meniscus injuries. Nobody knew what level it was. It forced her to miss all the All-Star games, the playoffs for her team, unfortunately. But I mean, we are talking about one of the top 2 point guards in the class of 2024, 5'9", out of Bishop McNamara High School. And so, gosh, she looks like she's 14. I watched the video and I'm like, she looks so young. Maybe it's just because I'm so old, but she does have that little baby face. And so what did you learn from her interview? Her resume coming in and just her adjustment thus far in the summer, being a part of the top women's basketball program in the country.
Yeah, I got to talk to Maddie a little bit before she moved down, and write about her and kind of how she's been dealing with everything throughout her high school career, a couple of injuries, including the meniscus tear, and just what it was like for her trying to navigate through that, what her motivations are and things like that. So it was nice to meet her in real life and be able to put like a name to, allow her to put a name to a face, because I obviously knew what her face looked like. But yeah, it sounds like things are going well. She talked about Raven being somebody who really kind of took her under her wing, which I feel like makes sense. I mean, we talked about how like both of them are speedsters, right? And so and obviously Raven was dealing with injury and stuff early on in her career as well. So I think that's kind of helped her. They've been able to talk, and I believe Raven told her, like, you are in a better place right now than I was when I came in your position, right? So I think that's kind of, lifted her up a little bit and made her feel a little bit better about the newness of everything, because there's obviously an excitement level to this transition and being able to kind of tap into this new aspect of your game and elevate it and all that kind of stuff. But there's also some nervousness. So I think she appreciated that. And it sounds like she's, putting in work and trying to just kind of like soak up as much as she can. It's funny because all the other women on the team, I feel like we see and talk about their like social media and TikTok presence a lot. I have not seen Maddie in a TikTok yet. She said she likes to watch as opposed to participating. I told her I'm sure they'll indoctrinate her at some point. So we'll have to be on the lookout for a Maddie McDaniel appearance in the South Carolina women's basketball TikTok.
All right, so how about let's go from the smallest member of the class, Maddie McDaniel, to Miriam Dowda, 6'4", transfer from Arkansas. Her first opportunity to meet with the media. Just your thoughts on her. I mean, you could definitely tell she's not a freshman, but at the same time, kind of still the shock and awe of the first day of being in practice with Dawn Staley and being a part of a team that just went 38-0 and winning the national championship.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, we talked about, obviously, over the summer and spring and everything about the embarrassment of riches kind of aspect. And how do you come in as somebody, a newcomer to a team that's largely stayed intact after a perfect season, a national championship. And so asking Miriam about that was interesting because she basically said, she had her visit to South Carolina and Coach Staley kind of gave her pitch, right? And in her vision, I think is what Miriam called it. And she felt confident about that mission or vision, excuse me. And felt like, she really kind of clicked with, I think Raven and Adele were the ones who were here when she visited. And so just kind of all the vibes, she said, just felt right. They went to dinner or her family went to dinner with the coaching staff. And after the coaching staff all showed up to the airport to pick her up, which she felt was a good sign. And then how everybody interacted at dinner or lunch, I can't remember exactly what she said, just felt right. She said it felt kind of like meant to be. And so that was nice to hear from her, that she feels good about where she's at and her ability to contribute. She talked about described her game, which is basically what we kind of talked about as her game, but being able to stretch the floor as a big, being able to run the floor, being very versatile. And so it'll be interesting and nice to see kind of how that plays out in terms of potential starting lineups, and whether, will she be put at the 5, or will Ashley maybe be put at, or Fagan maybe be put at the 5? Who knows really what's going to happen with that 4-5 situation, but to know that she brings a different skill set is I think going to make it, more interesting. And it's nice to hear her be confident in that, and to describe her game with a command on it, and not like a braggart kind of way, but we've talked about it with Malaysia, right, where you ask them what they're good at, and they're not afraid to tell you. And that was kind of the vibe that I got from her, and that's always fun to interact with, I think.
And that just adds another prolific shot blocker as well to the team. And the ability to shoot the 3, although I think she's a career 30% three-point shooter. Regardless, I think this year, really, outside of Adele Tack, and oh, good Lord, the last one that decided to come back, who did not play a lot, who's a true center, right? 6'5", 6'6", all these players, Ashlyn Watkins, Fagan, Dowda, Chloe Kitts, Joyce Edwards. It's all positionless basketball, because they can all do so many different things. The lineup possibilities are endless because of that, because she can stretch the floor just like Fagan can, just like Joyce Edwards. To me, I don't even know if she has a position. She's just a basketball player. But, Ashlyn Watkins, we've seen her hit the mid-range shot, take players off the dribble, Fagan as well as Chloe Kitts. And so I think Dowda, that's just another player that can do that. And then you add Joyce Edwards, who's probably the most decorated player to arrive at South Carolina since Asia Wilson. She got her braces off. She doesn't look like she's a freshman in high school anymore. She looks like she's ready for college. But still, the big smile, the big personality, and I mean, what an athlete and what a player South Carolina is getting with her. And what were some of the highlights of her interview?
Yeah, she was great to talk to. I'm sure she has kind of perfected that as a craft, being such a renowned and highly touted high school player and getting the coverage that she got. But it was nice to talk to her and connect and just, talk about this kind of full circle transition for her. I remember when she committed, her mom was emphatic about the fact that they didn't want to just go to South Carolina because it was 30 minutes down the road. Like, they wanted to get her everywhere so that way she could see for herself, okay, I can go anywhere in the country. Where do I want to go? Where's the best place for me academically and basketball wise? And go figure, it just ended up being the one 30 minutes down the street. So, it was fun to talk with her about that. She was reminiscing about being a mob girl at the arena during like the Asia Wilson era of South Carolina women's basketball. And so she had gone to the camp and then gotten offered like, hey, if you come and mop the floors at CLA, then you can go to some games for free. And at first she was like, I don't know. Like, then I don't know if I really want to do that. But then she said her mom made her go, and she ended up being able to take a picture with Asia Wilson after one of the games and stuff. And so it's kind of wild that that's someone that she looked up to, that she wanted to kind of model parts of her game after, that she talked about Asia as somebody who, she's gone through all the things that I want to go through. Like, she's achieved all the things that I'm trying to achieve, so she knows what it takes. And so going from that moment to when Joyce went to the Maryland game, the home opener last season, and Asia was there, and then she decided to commit right after that. She had talked with Asia at that game about, what does it take to play at South Carolina, and like, what is it like to be this highly touted player from like right from here and playing for Dawn Staley and all this kind of stuff. And so this like kind of threefold, like circle from her being at that point to where she is now, like a Gamecock for real. And so that was fun to hear from her and hear about her wild summer where she was all over the place playing in the AmeriCup, where she won MVP, all the All-Star games, and getting to go to the SB Awards herself as one of the Gatorade Player of the Year nominees or Athlete of the Year nominees at that point. And she said it was fun, but she also, something that kind of struck me, like, I appreciate her candor with this. She was saying that she kind of felt behind in terms of like summer workouts and stuff because she was all over the place, right? And so she wasn't in the weight room with her teammates and stuff when she was in Columbia competing with Team USA and all of that. So I think she was feeling a little bit insecure about that, but now she's back and now she's able to, kind of hunker down and really grind in that respect. And she's got people like Ashlyn and Sanaya Fagan in particular kind of pushing her and helping her. I know her and Ashlyn have been training here in town together for a long time. And so they kind of had that relationship already of trying to drive each other. And we know Ashlyn is incredibly athletic, super strong. And so having that as somebody that you're competing with every day, it's not a bad situation if you're trying to improve yourself in the way that Joyce sounds like she is. So yeah, it was nice to kind of catch up with her and everything since I last talked with her last year. And so I'm excited to see what she's gonna do, and I think she's excited too.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm really intrigued for where and how she fits in this season with the team. So you mentioned the ESPYs, and so there's a lot of naysayers out there on the message boards. I call them the message board mobs, the Debbie Downers. Oh, women's basketball drains the budget. That's why we're not good at football, as we pay too much money for women's basketball. But when you consider just an event like the ESPYs, right? Dawn Staley honored with the Jimmy V Award. South Carolina winning the #1 team, the Team of the Year award. Not the Super Bowl champs, not the NBA champs, not the Major League Baseball or the WNBA champs. It was South Carolina. They're all up on stage for that. Asia Wilson being the Female Athlete of the Year as well, and all the other stuff with the team. Right. And with Dawn Staley in particular, with her profile, to me, you can't really put a dollar figure on the amount of positive publicity the university receives from this program.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Logic would make me agree with that sentiment. I have been trying all summer to figure out if there's a way that you can approximate maybe a dollar value onto something like that. Still working on that. But yeah, I mean, that, like, Dawn Staley talked about it when she signed her last contract extension, because people are quick to talk about women's basketball as a non-revenue generating sport, right? And the reason why it's a non-revenue generating sport is because they don't get media rights money or units from the tournament like football and men's basketball do. But I digress, because that's millions of dollars a year. But anyway, but she talked about, I mean, like, we kind of are, like, even if you can't put a numerical value on it in a spreadsheet or a financial audit or whatever, like, the winning is gonna, like, bring you money, and the marketing and the commercials and the spots on TV, the appearances in the NCAA tournament, which is why the men get units, and we're still waiting for the women to get units. But, like, exposure is, people pay for exposure in other instances and industries and outlets or whatever, and that's what this team has, right? Like, they've got a crazy following on social media. I mean, Dawn Staley has the largest following on Twitter and Instagram of any coach that finished in the AP top 25 last year, by a lot. And so, like, that, in of itself, that's got to be worth money, right? Like, all of these things put together, like, there might not be an exact kind of contribution that you can label it as, but, like, yeah, that's more helpful for you than if you didn't have it, right? So it is interesting that people are so quick to like, for lack of a better word, crap on that. Like, when it's just like, why are you not enjoying having a team that's good here, even if it's not like the main one, like football or whatever, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I say just enjoy having a fun, good team of any kind to watch.
So I really think the presidents got hosed by the networks on the new deal. They should have demanded units. And after, we talked about last time about that, basically 800% increase in the voting for WNBA All-Stars from last year to this year, and the viewership and the number of networks now that the sport is on a regular basis. The presidents need to rip up that deal and get a deal for the women. I mean, look, it's not going to be as much as the men's tournament, I'm sure, but they need to rip up that deal and go to units, just like the men, and then women's basketball at a lot of places now. would become a revenue generating sport. And obviously South Carolina would be included in that. But, college presidents are more highly educated than me, but maybe they don't have that much common sense. So speaking of being on network television, South Carolina just added a non-conference road game, which is good for me because it's in Texas, in Fort Worth, Sunday, December the 8th at 7 o'clock on that 4-letter network, ESPN. TCU 21-12. They got a pair of SEC transfers. Old friend Haley Van Lith. This will now be the third team South Carolina has faced Haley Van Lith as a member of 3 different teams. Louisville in the Final Four, at LSU last year in the regular season and the SEC tournament championship. And now in December, TCU, the Horned Frogs, 21-12 last year. I think they also added Maddie Shear from Kentucky, who's a 3-point bomber. But just another tough game, non-conference game for South Carolina on the road.
Yeah, it's nice to see the non-conference schedule coming together. I was hoping that they would put something like that kind of looped in with another trip, like a way back kind of thing, maybe when they're on the West Coast, but it's not looking like that based on the dates. So I'm hoping I can still go. But yeah, it's exciting. We know South Carolina always has a hard non-conference schedule, and Dawn Staley likes it that way to prepare the team for March and to get them in that number 1 seed area based on their strength of schedule and all these kinds of things. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they would add something like this on there. I think it's going to be fun. I'm trying to remember what the order of the different games are of the dates that we have. Okay, so that'll be like right after the ACC SEC Challenge with Duke and the Fort Myers tournament at the end of the month around Thanksgiving or on Thanksgiving, and then 2 days later also. But so that'll be a nice little kind of like situation, right? Not quite the Tobacco Road trip, but like they're going to be of last year, but they're going to be on the West Coast and dealing with that, not only the opponents like UCLA, right, but like also the time difference and the travel on your body kind of early in the year and adjusting to that and what that's going to be like. So yeah, it's looking like a good, fun, interesting schedule so far. I'm excited for the whole thing to come out so I can start planning on my travel budgets and things like that. So, but yeah, I liked that game. When they announced that, I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds like fun. I think that'll be a good one.
So I still think there'll probably be another West Coast game. I think they're probably looking for one. Maybe Stanford. I think they're probably should change their name to the Chickens or the Scaredy Cats. That's what us old folks used to say back in the day. Because they were supposed to play them and they backed out. I think we all know that by now. So last thing. So probably the most not talked about person, but I love the videos, particularly the Final Four Fridays. Molly Benetti, I know she has a fancy title, but essentially she's the strength and conditioning or sports performance coach, I guess now is what they call it. I mean, her impact with this team, I really don't know how you measure it. I think she's, clearly one of the elite at what she does. Certainly it helps when you have elite athletes like South Carolina has. But, I mean, how do you gauge her impact with this program?
Yeah, I don't think it can be overstated, really. I mean, the Coach Dawn Staley is quick to sing her praises. The players are quick to sing her praises. Um, you can tell that she has a firm grasp on, like, knowledge-wise on everything that it is she's doing, and then she also is able to package it in a way, I think, that makes it really fun for the athletes and kind of taps into their kind of competitive, mindset. And whether that's, stuff that they do actually in the gym and in the weight room and everything like that, the kind of battles that they'll have with each other, or on the beach volleyball courts or at the pool and all that kind of stuff. I think she does an excellent job of not only, coming up with really good workouts that tailored to the specific players and making sure that she's kind of helping them build strength in the various ways that they need to and helping them get their bodies right and all that kind of stuff, but like also the way that she's just able to make it fun. Because they know it's hard work and they know that there are sacrifices they have to make, and they're gonna have to do things that they don't want to do in order to be the players that they want to be, right? But I think she does a really good job of approaching it in a way that makes it fun for them, that helps them kind of, like really buy in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so, I don't think it can be overstated. We've also seen, well, I don't know how much people are tapped into her social media, but like, Dawn Staley's been on an off-season tour, right? But like, so has Molly Benetti. She's spoken at a lot of different kind of like conferences and things like that. And she's been putting on her own workout classes and everything here in town. And she's got her Body by Benetti plan that people buy and work out to and everything too. And so I think that also is a really interesting thing, because I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about the strength and conditioning coach kind of scene in college athletics, but I can't think that there's a fan base that knows as much about their strength and conditioning coach as this one does about Molly Benetti, and like cares about the person and the other endeavors that they have outside of, helping the players be their best selves. So I think that's a really unique and interesting, fun thing as well. But I think that speaks to her, not only like the unique nature of this fan base and program, but like her command on her craft and the caliber at which she operates and everything like that. So yeah, I don't think it can be overstated at all. Especially when we heard Coach Dawn Staley last season talk about when they got to on campus in the summer, everybody was out of shape and she was super stressed out thinking that she was back in like 2009. So, the fact that Molly Benetti was able to help them figure that out in of itself is really impressive. And she's obviously done more than just that also.
All right, so football gets underway tomorrow, and so no real deep dive, but how about some just a couple of football quick hitters and then some over-unders real quick. All right, so give me the biggest question mark you have for this team.
Not the defense. I would say that is probably fine, poised to do well. A lot of returners and more experience and things like that, right? But I think, I think one of the biggest questions is the wide receiver room, right? Just kind of the lack of names in there. And Coach Shane Beamer, said that in Dallas, right? And that was kind of the only skill group that he didn't really talk about there, which I thought also was significant. So, I talked to Coach Mike Fury the other day at the Birdies with Beamer event about the group and tried to ask him, like Coach Beamer has said that this is a largely unknown group. Like, who are some guys you think fans should know heading into the season? And he was like, I don't know if I can pick out a particular guy. And I think that his aim is to find a group of contributors as opposed to having kind of a like wide receiver one. So it'll be interesting to see how that works, and also how the different skill positions are going to interact with these quarterbacks, whether it be, Lenora Sellers, who we all assume is going to be the starter, but Shane Beamer is also quick to throw Robbie Ashford in there as well, right, with his SEC experience. So we can't say yet, right? But we'll find out. And regardless, like these guys are more have a different skill set than Spencer Rattler. You know, they're more athletic and they have more of a capacity to run and things like that. And so being able to see how is that going to affect, you know, the wide receiver room, how is that going to affect the responsibilities of the running backs? And I mean, talking to Coach Blackwell the other day as well, he was saying if you don't protect the quarterback, you're not going to get on the field. So, you know, that's a significant statement, I think, of him to say, particularly knowing that this is a different kind of, you know, passer, whoever it ends up being, than we've seen in the last couple of years. So I'm interested to see just kind of how the offense works in general, just with all the new faces and new responsibilities that people have.
All right. So one area, or the biggest area of strength, you think, for this team?
I guess I would just say the defense in general. I mean, I get nervous about stuff like this because I know that it's going to get like pulled back up later when the team is like halfway through the season and it'll be like, oh, I told you so, or oh, you got this wrong or whatever. But I think the defense, I mean, they've got a lot of guys coming back who have a whole other year of experience under their belts. I think it's important also to not underestimate the like chip on their shoulders potentially. I mean, Coach Shane Beamer has talked about it, right? Like not being pleased about last year. And he frames it as, you know, these guys know they came back because they know that we're capable of more, or that we're, like paraphrasing him, right? We're capable of more. We have more in the tank. So that's why they decided to come back. And so we'll see what happens. But I think, yeah, I think that's probably the greatest area of strength. I think also that the offensive line from last year, like, and all the insanity of that, I mean, knocking on wood, just because you never want to see terrible injuries happen, but like 10 injuries to one position group is nuts. And you got to think not like likely to happen again. And you, in having all those injuries from last year, you had a lot of young guys get a lot of valuable experience. So hopefully from last year and the strength and conditioning they've been able to do kind of over the offseason and all of that will make that position group stronger as well. But I think the other ones are just such question marks that we can't really like say much about them at this point.
All right, name one returning player on offense you're most excited about. Quickly, quick hitters. Quick hitters.
I was going to say these questions I still have to like transition into football mindset again, but also it's like I'm thinking about it and I'm just like, man, who are the offensive returners? Like, it's kind of a tricky thing, right? I mean, Coach Shane Beamer has talked about it a lot, of like, you know, the challenges that come with being a head coach today is that your roster doesn't turn over every 4 years, it turns over every year. And so how do you deal with that and everything? So yeah, I mean, I don't know about a offensive returner that I'm most excited for. I mean, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people talking about Tyshawn Russell as somebody to, you know, be potentially excited for, or somebody who could have a good year and who's been working hard. So I think that could be interesting as well. I wonder, like, Juju McDowell being like one of the only returners in the running back room, you know, and he didn't really get to play a lot last year. Like, what is that potentially going to look like? But yeah, I don't know. And I mean, if you want to talk about like offensive line, I guess these aren't quite as like quote unquote sexy positions, right? But like Vershawn Lee, I think him coming back is huge at the center position. So I would probably say him, actually. Like, I got distracted by the flashiness of skill positions, but I think Vershawn Lee is probably like the one to be most excited about, talking about, you know, continuity and knowledge of position. Like, he's played so many spots on the offensive line. I think having him back is going to be a big deal for this team, especially trying to come off the offensive line struggles of last year.
All right, one returning player on defense.
I would say, well, I mean, Debo's been talking a big game since Dallas, so I would like to see. I mean, it's fun to hear players kind of like talk their smack. It would be fun to see him kind of live up to that, particularly in his last year. Not that he had like a bad year last year, but like, just seeing if he can kind of, further step into that leadership role and see how that influence kind of trickles down to the rest of the defense. I think also Nick Emmanwori coming back is big. I know last year wasn't necessarily as exciting as his first year, but when you're a talented athletic player and we hear whispers potentially of like entering the portal and things like that, and then you decide to come back, I got to think maybe, he thinks there's something about being here that he thinks is good for him and can help him kind of tap into the next level. So hopefully those two guys have a good year this year.
All right, one newcomer on offense.
I think the obvious one is Rocket Sanders. I mean, I know rocket science has been like the big thing that this coaching staff has talked about, him rehabbing and all of that. But no, I'm excited to see what he's able to do here. I know last year didn't go quite as he probably wanted it to, but he was still dealing with injury and everything, right? And Beamer has talked a lot about how he thinks people forgot how good Rocket was in 2022, and he's kind of glad that they forgot because now he's here. So I'm excited to see what he's able to get done. And hopefully this offensive line can help him out so he's able to really get some stuff done. But I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to see how maybe his influence will impact the rest of the position, because talking with Coach Blackwell, he's, mentioned the fact that Rocket comes in and he operates like a professional, right? And so he's setting an example for the other guys in the room as to this is how you conduct yourself, this is how you work hard in order to get to a certain level. And hopefully they'll feel inspired by that and be able to take something from that. And we'll kind of see what that group will be able to, what kind of transformation that group will be able to experience from last year to this year.
Okay, and one newcomer on defense.
Oh, you're really testing my knowledge of the roster right now.
Just one.
I know my brain is not working. Let's come back to that one. Let's go to the next one and then come back.
All right, so now it's over and under.
Okay.
So over under number of wins this year for South Carolina, 5.5. Over or under?
Yeah, this has been the question, right? Because ESPN in its predictions has said 6-6. I think 6-6 is entirely possible. But I also think 5-7 is entirely possible. Like this schedule is just kind of nuts, right? Like we look at it, and I can't remember what the exact like strength of schedule is, but I want to say it's like, I saw somewhere it was like one of the like fourth hardest or something crazy like that. But I mean, you go to Kentucky early in the season. That's a little bit worrisome. And you play at Alabama, at Oklahoma, I think consecutive weeks. That's pretty brutal. Ole Miss and LSU coming to town and all this stuff. I think you look at the non-conference games, you look at Old Dominion, Akron, Wofford, and et cetera. And Vanderbilt. And you think, those are like locks probably, right? But then it's about where do the other wins come from? So I don't want to like cop out and not answer the question, but I would probably say I could go either way on that one. I mean, the optimist in me wants to pick over, but the pessimist in me is like, I don't know, because this could be a better team than last year, and it could just not necessarily matter for the record, which I think is a challenge for Shane Beamer, particularly in year 4, as people are kind of starting to be like, okay, how far into the Shane Beamer era are we going to be until we expect, what do we expect at year 4? What is a success in year 4 in this SEC with this team in this program and all of that. So yeah, I mean, I'll like be positive and I'll go over, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it's under. And that's
all right. So something weird happened to my screen while I was typing a comment. I have no idea what happened there. All right, Lenora Sellers, over or under 500 yards rushing?
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe things will be spicy and exciting, and maybe it'll be over. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this staff works with, because I think I don't know if it was Shane Beamer or Dow Loggins were talking about having to kind of reorganize the offense around the skill sets that they have at quarterback this year. And so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. And because we don't know here what a dual threat quarterback scheme kind of really looks like. So I wonder if that means that they're going to try to like be sparing with it, or if they're going to like really lean into it, especially considering that Lenora Sellers is like I think the largest quarterback in the conference, which I would think would make you feel a little bit braver about letting him run, paired with his skill set. So I don't know, I'll be exciting, and I'll say over, and we'll see how fun that is. Also, I can go back to the newcomer question now. I cannot believe my brain fart of all of this. Like Dylan Stewart, like his transformation that we saw the other day, like that was his like before and after picture in what, like was it like a few weeks or like a couple months or whatever. I was like, that's nuts. It reminded me a little bit of I don't know if anybody would really know what I'm talking about, but a few years ago, I think his name was Coach Savage at the University of Florida, their strength and conditioning coach under Dan Mullen. He posted a bunch of pictures of guys before and after, kind of like that, but they were more staged, I think, than Dylan Stewart's pictures were. And people on social media freaked out. So yeah, that's pretty wild. I'm excited to see how that translates. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you get to college, the resources that you have for stuff like that, being able to transform your body. So yeah, 5-star, looking great. Excited to see how that translates on the field.
All right, over under Lenora Sellers, 2,000 yards passing.
Oh, I don't think I can say over if I said over on the other one. I feel like that would be kind of mathematically very hard to achieve. But I am excited to see, because I mean the little bit that we saw of him last year, that one pass, I think it was Furman, which I think was the only time we got to talk to him last year, where he like launched a ball, and we talked to Dow Loggins after, and Dow Loggins was like, that was not what he was supposed to do, but he did it anyway. And he was like, it's fine in this instance, but otherwise please refrain from improvising like that. But like to see his arm strength and to see that he was able to make that happen is an exciting thing. So I mean, I'm going under because I went over on the 500, but I am interested to see how much of like for lack of a word, a cannon that he has this year and is able to exhibit. So yeah, I'm very intrigued as to what that balance is going to actually look like.
All right, so Spencer Rattler did throw for over 3,000 yards each of the last 2 seasons. So that will be interesting. All right, Rocket Sanders, over under 850 yards rushing.
Man, dependent on this O-line, I think he can go over, and that would be super fun. Because like doing the math, I'm like, okay, how many 100-yard games would he need for that, right? But no, I think if this O-line, it can show us the kind of optimism that Shane Beamer seems to have with it, I think that's entirely possible. So yeah, I'll go over, and I'm really like trying to imbue positivity into everybody with these bets. So.
All right. Well, Payton, I can't thank you enough for being with us. Great stuff as always. Good luck tomorrow. I know it's not a good place to be even though it's a big building because of all the people, if you're kind of have fear of crowds. I don't know what they call that. But it should be an interesting day. Looking forward to what Shane Beamer has to say. I'm sure his opening statement will not be 17 minutes like it was in Dallas, but we'll see. And we'll see if he remembers to finally include the injury report before Dave Cloninger has to hit him with the first.
Yeah, that was funny at the golf tournament because Cloninger was not seated right there in front of him. And so he was like, I don't know where, like part of his opening statement, he was like, I don't know where David is, but before he asked the injury report, everybody other than that one kid who had the injury in spring, like everybody's
Maury Sandy.
Yes. Yeah. So that was funny. So we'll see if we get another one of those tomorrow, or if he ends up getting asked and then he'll be like, dang, I meant to do that before.
All right. Well, enjoy, and we look forward to all your football and women's basketball coverage. Obviously, with the early season start, I think recruiting, once school starts back, will be in full force for Dawn Staley. She's in on several of the top players in the country. It'll be interesting to follow those official visits. You know, can she grab another number one player in the country in Aaliyah Chavez? It's a point guard. I do think she'll be tough to get out of the state of Texas, but we shall see. So, Payton, great stuff as always. And by the way, I mentioned it, I think, in our conversation offline, but the story you did last week on Dawn Staley, remarkable piece and a great read. And so if you guys are not a member of Go Gamecocks or the State Sports, that story, particularly if you're a women's basketball fan or a Dawn Staley fan, that's worth 1 month's membership just for that story. Well done, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to catching up with you again down the road, and we'll look forward to we'll know when you're asking the questions to Shane Beamer for sure. So look forward to that. Be well, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Yes, sir. You too. Thanks for having me.
All right. The great Payton Titus, award-winning journalist from Go Gamecocks, and she's coming back for a second year. It's like the first one since Greg Hadley. So we shall see. All right. So I did have some stuff on football recruiting. I know there's been a lot of angst and consternation. I would like to caution everybody that on either side, whether it's committed players, we know South Carolina's lost Shamari Earls to Georgia. It looks like they could be losing Jaden Breaker to LSU. But, hey, he's just a 3-star, right? Everybody was throwing shade on him, low-hanging fruit, etc. Well, I watched all the film. Jaden Breaker, he's a 4-star guy. Okay, and so is Donovan Darden from Havelock. Different types of players. I thought Breaker was the one guy that was a true outside linebacker, a guy that could play in space like a Will linebacker or a Sam linebacker. That looks like that could be happening. South Carolina did not get a commitment from Malik Clark as was expected. I don't know if we can really call that the Wes Mitchell curse, but he was in attendance. But so was Hale McGranahan, and I think you guys that follow the websites know they don't generally attend those announcements unless they already have a story with quotes from the player ready to, press display, and South Carolina was shocked, but I don't think that one's over, not by a mile. We'll see what happens with Malik Clark. South Carolina did host 4-star and offer 4-star wide receiver / tight end Mikael Skinner. He's kind of a Jaheim Bell type player to me. He seems to be trending towards South Carolina. There's a lot of chatter that could be happening. On Friday, 4-star Norfolk, Virginia safety Kendall Daniels Jr., 6'3", 190, will finally announce his decision. South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and Clemson. I think the Gamecocks feel pretty good, but I know everybody's got PTSD after Malik Clark. And Lagonza Hayward committed to Tennessee over the weekend. He was one of the welcome homes from Shane Beamer. But that didn't happen. Saturday, 4-star offensive lineman Jalen Gilchrist, 6'5", 315 from Virginia Beach, Virginia. He's essentially choosing between South Carolina and Maryland. South Carolina's been stronger, longer there, but Maryland has made up a lot of ground. I think that one, even with an announcement, will probably go to signing day. I think commitments are good, but if guys are really committed, I think there ought to be a signing period in early August. Then you really find out who's committed and who's made a reservation, right? Like if you're committed, you're going to the 5-star steakhouse. You're being seated, or like a hotel reservation, you have to go ahead and pay in advance to get your room. I think that would be good. Also on Saturday, 5-star defensive end Jared Smith of Alabaster, Alabama will decide Auburn or South Carolina. It looks like Auburn could be trending there, but I think that's another one. What if Hugh Freeze throws up a clunker this season and Phil Steele is right about the Gamecocks and they win 8 games, right? Like that's a game changer. South Carolina could be adding a late addition to the 2024 class, interior offensive lineman Kamari Landers, 6'5", 315 from Copiah Lincoln Junior College and a native of Detroit, Michigan. Went to Akron as a freshman, bounced back to JUCO. Arkansas's offered, Kentucky. This guy has other SEC offers he's announcing later today or tonight. So we'll see what happens with him. I mean, look, when you are in big boy recruiting, which South Carolina has been in, they got Dylan Stewart. They got Nicholas Harbor. Back-to-back out-of-state 5-stars, only time in school history. Going forward again with Jared Smith. That one could go to signing day. But South Carolina's not coming off an 8-win season or a bowl win over North Carolina or back-to-back wins over Tennessee and Clemson. They're coming off a 5-7 season. There's been a lot of turnover on the coaching staff, not just new coaches, but, you know, you went from Justin Stepp to James Coley to Mike Furry, and Mike Furry still basically got 3 4-star receivers. I mean, Jaden Sellers already committed. Brian Rowe committed. He's a 4-star guy now. Lex Cyrus they got. I still won't be shocked if Malik Clark ends up flipping to South Carolina, but I think a lot of how this season plays out will depend on it. And I'll say this, my commentary on football recruiting is somebody that's followed it for a long, long time. Okay, coaches will get fired. Players will be available from other schools and other programs, and there will be a transfer portal period for South Carolina. South Carolina this year, NIL is not going to be a problem. People that are wringing their hands thinking South Carolina is poor and does not have the budget for football to be competitive, that is not accurate anymore. And I know this for an absolute certainty. So relax. South Carolina brought in a lot of really good players from the portal last year, and they didn't have as much money as they're going to have this year. Shane Beamer, my biggest concerns for this team is, one, who's going to be the field goal kicker? Because, you know, Mitch Jeter transferred. You don't have a single player on the roster who's kicked a field goal in a college football game. Yes, Alex Herrera is like a 5th-year guy. They put him on scholarship. He was injured almost all spring. You know, Joe DeCamillis mentioned that. So there is an open competition at field goal kicker. And then I want to know, how involved is Sean Elliott going to be with the offensive line? He better be very involved, because let's face it, South Carolina, the offensive line this year better be damn good, okay? Because you've got a guy like Rocket Sanders that is an All-American running back and probably the closest thing to George Rogers since you got Rocket Sanders, okay? And that's a long, long time for somebody that's been a lifelong Gamecock fan and has basically seen every running back since even before George Rogers. There have been some guys that were great, no doubt about it. But when you consider the size, the speed, the power, and the ability to make people miss and run through contact, which Marcus Lattimore was great at doing that, Rocket Sanders is an All-American player and he's a pro. And so your offensive line needs to be able to create, push for the run game and protect the passer. I think for me, probably the returner I'm most excited about on offense is Joshua Simon, because I think he's a big-time tight end. Newcomer on offense, maybe it's Josiah Thompson, but maybe it's one of the 5 transfer wide receivers that we don't know who's going to stand out. But I think South Carolina's tight ends with Joshua Simon, with Brady Hunt, and with Michael Smith, and the run game, you can bring along the wide receivers. Playmakers will emerge. Mike Furry will coach guys up. And there are a lot of older guys, and there are some younger guys as well, like Tyshawn Russell, like Mazeo Bennett, and DeBron Gatling, Vandrevius Jacobs. Those are really the young guys. But the older guys like Delvon Campbell, even Nick Harbor, you know, you can't coach a guy to be 6'5" and run a 10-1 100 meters. So, but you can coach him how to be a better route runner, how to use his hands, how to break off his routes, how to be a better blocker and a better wide receiver. So I do think they will emerge. But now with analysts, all the restrictions being lifted off of them, now you got Mike Shula, who can be your quarterback's coach, and Dowell Loggins, who can be involved, but he's still the offensive coordinator. With a young quarterback, you have the helmet comms until 15 seconds on the play clock. We talked about that. If you run a hurry up, no huddle offense, they call it NASCAR here in Texas, you can be up to the line and Dowell Loggins or Mike Shula or whoever's up in the press box can be communicating with Lenore Sellers. Then you go to the sideline, you're on the headset, and you're looking at the previous series on an iPad with an aerial view and a ground view of what the defense is doing. So that should help. But to me, Sean Elliott, as the run game coordinator, he's the one guy I have confidence in to get the offensive line right. No offense to Lonnie Teasley. He's a great recruiter. I think he's a pretty good coach, but he's not Sean Elliott. And Sean Elliott, as the run game coordinator, needs to be involved in personnel decisions, in run schemes, and getting guys where they can maximize their ability and the offensive line can maximize the run game and the pass protection at South Carolina with a dual threat quarterback. So those are my biggest question marks, but there's a lot of knowns and a lot of strengths. And I've been talking about those in our Five Guys segments on Gamecock Pod Daily. So if you would like more of this podcast every single day, in addition to the live Wednesday show, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, you can become an annual VIP or monthly subscriber to Gamecock Pod Daily and get this show every single day, Monday through Friday, with great guests like Payton Titus and Jordan Kay from Go Gamecocks, Hale McGranahan, Alex Jones and John Whittle from the Big Spur, Mike Yuva, Brad Crawford from 24/7 Sports. We'll be getting him on, and Michael W. Bratton, the host of that SEC podcast, will be coming up soon, and many, many others. In addition to the daily show every Tuesday night, we do a live interactive Zoom call with up to 100 of your favorite Gamecocks and friends. That's called the Garnet and Black Town Hall. That is a very beloved podcast for me because I get to interact with our loyal subscribers and really my Gamecock family. It's like going down to your favorite sports bar and chopping it up with your favorite Gamecocks and friends about all things related to Gamecock athletics. That lasts for about an hour. Then we usually have an overtime segment, which is unrecorded. That's where the real scoop gets dropped. If you sign up for the rest of this week, you get 3 months off an annual VIP subscription. If you become a monthly VIP subscriber, it's the cost of one trip to Starbucks. So join us, become a part of our growing Gamecock family on Gamecock Pod Daily. You can follow me on Twitter at KAllsep. Go to the top of the homepage, click on the link, follow the show at Gamecock Pod. Do the same thing on Twitter, or you can go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Gamecock Pod Daily, all lowercase, no spaces in between. You can find it. If all else fails, just go to Google or whatever your search engine is and type in Gamecock Pod Daily. It'll take you. Signing up is easy. You get 7-day trial membership. Your card does not get charged. so you can listen to the Garnet and Black Town Hall and a week's worth of podcasts and decide if that's something you want to do. So, again, sign up now. 3 months starting tomorrow, and really at the beginning of every month, 3 months off an annual VIP subscription. You'll love it. I guarantee it. I'll be back tomorrow. Probably on Friday, we'll have the audio from Shane Beamer, because I'll be working while that's going on, 2 to 2:30 Central Time. But until tomorrow on Gamecock Pod Daily, and until next week on Gamecock Pod Live, this is Keith Allsep saying, go Gamecocks, and I am out of here.